So it looks like we have a few more people coming to join us. We'll wait for our final group to join us. That should take a minute or so. So I guess we'll get started. Looks like the group has joined. First, thank you for joining us tonight. This is our first webinar for newly accepted UNE students. This series starts an informational presentation series for UNE's newest students and families. First, we want to welcome you. We do hope that you're able to get a lot of your questions answered. I do want to point out, we are always available for one-on-one appointments to discuss issues that are specific to your financial aid award. Student Financial Services is a service-oriented unit, and we always welcome contact from you. So let's get started. I do want to first introduce the presenters. First of all, my name is Ann Nelson, and I'm an Associate Director of Tuition Planning and the Student Service team here at UNE. And I'm joined by my colleague, Mike Thompson. He's our Director of Tuition Planning as well, and Systems. Mike is going to be answering questions online. I also want to point out that at the end of the presentation, we'll get to as many remaining questions that we have. And again, I want to add that we really do try to personalize your experience with our office. We understand that at this point in time, you are probably being inundated with information right now, whether you're a student trying to figure this out on your own, or you're a parent trying to help your child fund their education. So we do get it. There's a lot to consider as you make your college choice. And that's why we're here to do all we can to make the information clear and available to you. And we have a dedicated team of professionals who are here to guide you through the process, I think unlike any other way that you might find at other schools that you're considering. So we know that your time right now is valuable. The goal is to keep this presentation short and to the point. Some of this information may be duplicated in future webinars. You might have seen it previously, but we'll be moving along quickly. We do understand that there are a lot of parents out there. Sometimes I address things from the student perspective, but we know obviously that parents are deeply involved in this process. So we're going to start by simply dissecting the award letter. We'll move on to how your need is determined. We'll also talk about the net cost and how to calculate that of attending UNE. We'll also discuss the different funds that are offered to the student, how to pay the balance, and of course, next steps. So let's get started. You're going to receive one of two different financial aid award letters. This is an example of a final award letter. So if you've received a letter that looks like this, the funding that's offered is final unless there's been a significant change on your FAFSA. All you have to do at this point is to obviously decide to come to UNE and then to decide if you're going to accept the federal loans and work study if you've been offered that, and to complete outstanding loan requirements. I do want to point out we're still pretty early in this process, and please know that our office will be in constant contact with your student about their financial aid in the next few months, and we will be communicating with them. So we are always here to answer questions, but I do want to point out too, if you could make it a habit of telling your son or daughter to get into the habit of checking their emails, because that's how we are going to communicate with them. So moving on to a different type of award letter. If you were selected for verification, your letter is going to look like this. This letter is essentially showing that the financial aid that's been offered is considered estimated because the FAFSA was selected for verification. And the key here is to get the information to our office as quickly as possible. You can mail, email, or fax the information. I really encourage you, if you have any questions or need help with verification, please contact the office. We have a lot of staff members who are very skilled at helping you submit the correct information. And I will go back to my point about really encouraging your student to check their emails. If we have questions or need more information, we will be communicating via email. So if you go to the bottom of the letter, the information that's being requested will be highlighted. So going a little bit deeper again into verification, I do want to describe really what it is, if I could back up for a moment. Verification is a process where schools are required by the Department of Education to review and confirm the data that you submitted with your FAFSA. Again, on the bottom of the letter will be the information that's being requested, as well as the verification worksheet, which was included in your award package. Because we're doing 2 years prior, students are being asked to submit 2019 tax information. So that would be parent tax returns signed. If a student filed and didn't use DRT, we'll need it signed, and then 2019 W-2s. So again, look at the bottom of the letter for the information that is being requested. All right, so getting back to the award letter, just want to make a point of noting that here at UNE, the first line of the award letter is the student ID number. Here at UNE, as I said, we refer to that as the PRN, the personal reference number. I just include this slide. I do think it's helpful to have this available when you contact the office. It is a student identifier unique to them and really avoids having to give your social. Or give the student social. So it's really helpful to put that on any documents or payments that you make to the university. So let's look at the costs for next year, just cover them, and then I'll dig a little bit deeper into different parts of each of these costs. So next year, tuition is estimated to be $38,420. This is based on a student being a full-time student between 12 and 18 credits. The next line of the award letter is the general service fee. This fee is used to cover costs associated with student government, the campus center, on-campus activities and clubs, new student orientation, laundry, and much more. A few years ago, the university decided to eliminate lab fees, and I do think it makes billing much easier. You have one fee that covers all of those different charges. And lastly, you'll see a charge for your on-campus room and board. If you indicated on the FAFSA that you're living on campus, you are going to see a cost here, and it will vary based upon the room that you're placed in, and those finalized assignments are typically done in the middle of July. So I want to talk just a little bit more about the next section of the award letter, and this is information on what factors influence your financial aid package. And so we'll kind of take a little bit of a deeper look. Just as I mentioned earlier, again, enrollment status is a full-time student. If a student goes below 12 credits, they are considered less than full-time and their award will change. So students who are half-time are not eligible to receive their UNE merit scholarship. And if you're even below a less than half-time status, most forms of financial aid are not available. And again, housing is based on what you indicated on the FAFSA. Each of the schools that you indicated you want to send your FAFSA to asks you, do you intend to live on campus or with parents? So that's what impacts the financial aid, because housing is considered an expense that you will incur, and therefore the financial aid is factored depending on your housing status. And then the last thing, of course, is the student's estimated family contribution, or EFC. This is a figure that's calculated by the methodology in the FAFSA. Each school will use this index differently to create a financial aid package. Good news for students, I think, and families, beginning with the 2023-2024 academic year, the EFC is actually going to be called the Student Aid Index, or SAI. Personally, I think it's a good change. I think it'll eliminate maybe some confusion about that number. So that's for, again, the 2023 academic year. So in the middle of the letter that you've received, you're going to see a breakdown of all the different types of funds, the amount that you're eligible for per term, and then the total amount for the year. So we'll take a little bit of a deeper look into the category of funding that you have been offered. So the first category that you see is going to be gift aid. This funding, as it notes, does not have to be repaid. Your merit award is an example of gift aid. So that is based on your academic profile that you've submitted to the university. Obviously, that amount will vary from student to student. It's not need-based. You don't have to complete a FAFSA. Your merit award is valid for your undergraduate years at UNE, as long as you're full-time and maintain a 2.5 GPA. The next type of gift aid is going to be the UNE Nor'easter. This is a UNE need-based gift fund, and the range of that fund will depend on your EFC and then other types of aid that you're receiving. And again, it does require a FAFSA. You may also be eligible for a federal Pell Grant and also a federal SEOG. These are, again, need-based, and they are part of your financial aid, and you would have received those from other schools. Lastly, there are some state grant programs. Those have, we've seen a decrease over the years, but you do have to complete a FAFSA, but also meet your state's guidelines. We see mostly Maine and Vermont are schools that are participating in those programs. The second type of financial aid is referred to as self-help, meaning the student has to take some type of action to utilize the funds. Federal work study is also need-based, so you do have to complete a FAFSA. If you do have that on your award letter, just note that you have to earn those funds during the course of the school year. Jobs typically are posted in August, and students contact employers on their own. So if you were awarded, for example, $3,000 in federal work study, that translates to about 250 work hours for the year, and students can keep track of their hours on the app that we use to manage that program. Second type of self-help are those federal loans that you see on that award letter. They're used to be called Stafford loans, but now they're referred to as federal direct loans. There are two types, subsidized and unsubsidized. So the subsidized loan is need-based, meaning based upon your financial need and your FAFSA. The government is paying that interest while the student is in school. The unsubsidized loan, interest will begin to accrue as soon as the loan is dispersed, dispersed to the account. We recommend paying some of that interest if you're while you're in school, if it's possible. It always helps to pay off some interest and build credit. And then finally, here at UNE, we do have a sibling and legacy grant. If there's a family connection to the university, siblings are awarded both $1,500 per year while they're enrolled, and the legacy grant is awarded to a student whose parent is also a graduate of UNE. So in the last section of the award letter, there is a paragraph about work study. It really is important to remind you that, again, work study is based upon need, and if it's offered as part of your award, you do not want to deduct that from the bill. Work study funding, again, is a fund set aside for students to not only earn money during the school year, but also to build their resume. So it's a really great opportunity to do that. If you have not been awarded work study funding, you can contact your office to see if you're eligible. But I do want to note there are also jobs on campus for non-work study students, and we can give you information on how those are posted to the app once you're enrolled. If those jobs typically post sometime, again, as I said, usually mid-August. So the one thing I did want to note is that sometimes the FAFSA does not capture everything that's going on with your financially at that given point in time. We do review situations on an individual basis to see if additional aid can be awarded to students. So if there are special circumstances, we really want you to call the office. This way we can vet your situation, talk about it in more detail, and determine what your next steps would be. So examples of this would include, a loss of income, a job loss, an unusual one-time gain of income. Maybe you have high unreimbursed medical expenses. And what we can do, again, is we can speak to you about that situation, look at some documentation, and determine if additional funding is awarded. I'm part of that planning and outreach team, so we work with families individually. So that's certainly the time for you to give us a call to talk about your situation. So I just want to get down to how to figure out how much it will cost to come to UNE. So really, the math is pretty straightforward. You're going to take the direct cost, the amount that you're going to be billed for next year, which is what we had talked about, 54,630. You want to deduct all of the gifting, so the merit, the Pell, any institutional scholarships. The example here is from the letter that we've been using to talk about. And then you're going to deduct any of that loan, those loan funds that you were awarded. We do not automatically deduct that. We want the student to make a decision. And so in this example, what you can see is the net cost is going to be 23,330 with once all of the financial aid has been applied. And that's your net cost. I do think it goes, I think it's helpful to talk about the cost of attendance because you're going to hear that term used a lot from different schools, and it will vary school to school. So let's talk about the cost of attendance because there's a direct cost and an indirect cost. And so this is a slide that's going to go into that. So you are going to be directly billed costs here at UNE: tuition, room and board, and then the general service fee. The indirect costs, okay, are mentioned and they're part of the student's portal on U Online. These are things that while we are not billing you for them, you will incur a cost to cover these things like books, supplies, or personal expenses. Again, obviously we're not going to bill you for that, but it is part of the cost of attending college. And so all of those things are created into what's called the cost of attendance or the student's budget. So again, a budget is comprised of the things you're billed for and the things that you're not billed for. And so combining this is the student's budget, and that's the number that we use to determine the amount of financial aid that a student is eligible for. So what is the budget? So the budget is going to be used to estimate the cost of college for the year, and it includes, again, the direct and indirect costs. We will use that budget to determine the maximum amount of funding that can be applied to a student's account. But what the budget isn't, it's not going to be the cost that you're going to pay, not going to be on your bill. And it will be, it will not be the same for students who live on campus and those who live at home. There's a different budget for those students. So I guess the best example I can use would be when a parent is going to borrow to cover what financial aid doesn't, there is a maximum budget and they can use that budget for that loan amount. I do want to note we're going to have an entire loan webinar. All of this will go into a lot more detail. So I do hope that you attend that one because I do think that it will be helpful for you to kind of know that in more detail. So what are your payment options? I mean, obviously we encourage students to start looking for outside scholarships. Lump sum payments are typically 529 plans. We have a monthly payment plan that, again, I will go into so much more detail in upcoming webinars. We also encourage parents to look at different loan options, the Parent Plus loan, and then there are also private student and parent loans that are available to families to cover the gap. If you're looking for more information, I really encourage you to go to the federal government's website of studentaid.gov, and then our website for information about private loans. We have a list of lenders. It's good, to start doing some research. This is a slide that I presented probably back in the late fall. If you're a parent who participated in one of those Discover UNE days, this will look familiar, but I do think it's worth repeating. Really, loan options are going to be looked at in so much more detail in April. So I do want to emphasize that we'll have a Wednesday webinar, April 14th. But just as a snapshot, parents can apply for the federal Parent Plus loan with a fixed rate. That could change. There is a fee to borrow that loan, or parents can look at an option for a private loan where either the student is the borrower with a parent co-signing, or the parent is the sole borrower. So those are the options. And again, really encourage you to take a look at the websites that are noted for research. And if you are up in the middle of the night and just want to do some loan research, that's a great place to go. And so I do think it's worth noting, UNE is proud of its many accolades, and these are just a few. Obviously, we are on those lists of companies that review colleges. So of course, we think it's good to mention that this is an investment you're making. So we do want you to obviously know that we are a school producing students who are getting jobs or going on to grad school. And so we appear in a lot of those lists. We also want to share tonight that our office, Student Financial Services, has a call center, and we do measure our rate of service. So we have a call answer rate that is about 98%. You do not go into voicemail. You won't be put on hold. Our speed to answer is anywhere from 12 to maybe 18 seconds. Most of our emails are turned around 24 to 48 hours. So this method to communication, but our entire office, the theme of the office is to be customer service oriented. And I do think that that's unusual in higher ed. So you'll get someone on the phone and we can help you with your questions. So what are the next steps? So I would sit down at this point with your spreadsheets. You want to determine what the net cost would be to attend UNE. You want to start thinking about the May 1st deadline. Start talking about those federal loans and work study. And if you're going to accept those, start researching those payment options. Students, if you can begin to obviously save if you're working or over the summer, save so you can pay for your books, look for outside scholarships. And then, of course, hopefully you'll participate in our upcoming webinars. So let me mention that our next webinar will be March 17th, how families pay for college, so different methods of paying. And then on the 14th of April, we'll go into loan options for families. Again, I want to mention we are available for Zoom or phone call appointments. Please don't hesitate to contact our office. I've been doing Wednesday evening appointments, and we are happy to schedule those for you. And so at this stage, what I'd like to do is have the Q&A portion of the presentation start. I do want to thank you for participating. Really, we do appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to working with you. And thank you so much.